Abraham Lincoln was an American statesman and lawyer who served as the 16th President of the United States from 1861 to 1865. Lincoln led the nation through the American Civil War, the country's greatest moral, constitutional, and political crisis. He succeeded in preserving the Union, abolishing slavery, bolstering the federal government, and modernizing the U.S. economy. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, the second child of Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hanks Lincoln, in a one-room log cabin on Sinking Spring Farm near Hodgenville, Kentucky. Lincoln's paternal grandparents, his namesake Captain Abraham Lincoln and wife Bathsheba, née Herring, moved the family from Virginia to Jefferson County, Kentucky. The captain was killed in an Indian raid in 1786. His children, including 8-year-old Thomas, Abraham's father, witnessed the attack. Thomas then worked at odd jobs in Kentucky and Tennessee before the family settled in Hardin County, Kentucky in the early 1800s. Thomas and Nancy married on June 12, 1806, in Washington County, and moved to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. They had 3 children, Sarah, Abraham, and Thomas, who died an infant. Thomas Lincoln bought or leased farms in Kentucky before losing all but 200 acres 81 hectares of his land in court disputes over property titles. In 1816, the family moved to Indiana where the land surveys and titles were more reliable. Indiana was a free, non-slaveholding territory, and they settled in an unbroken forest, in Hurricane Township, Perry County, Indiana. In 1860, Lincoln noted that the family's move to Indiana was partly on account of slavery, but mainly due to land title difficulties. On October 5, 1818, Nancy Lincoln succumbed to milk sickness, leaving 11-year-old Sarah in charge of a household including her father, 9-year-old Abraham, and Nancy's 19-year-old orphan cousin, Dennis Hanks. 10 years later, on January 20, 1828, Sarah died while giving birth to a stillborn son, devastating Lincoln. Lincoln disliked the hard labor associated with farm life. His family even said he was lazy, for all his reading, scribbling, writing, ciphering, writing poetry, etc. His stepmother acknowledged he did not enjoy physical labor, but loved to read. Lincoln was mostly self-educated, except for some schooling from itinerant teachers of less than 12 months aggregate. He persisted as an avid reader and retained a lifelong interest in learning. Family, neighbors, and schoolmates recalled that his reading included the King James Bible, Aesop's Fables, John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, and the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Abraham Lincoln knew a great deal about loss. His mother died when he was 9, he lost an election to the Illinois State Legislature, 1832, failed to obtain a desired appointment as Commissioner of the General Land Office in Illinois, 1849, lost Senate races, 1855, 1858, lost a vice presidential nomination, 1856, and in 1864, he seemed on the verge of losing a bid for a second term as president. In 1850, his 4-year-old son died, in 1851, his father died, and in 1862, his 12-year-old son died. Few people, however, remember Lincoln's losses because his victories were so important. Lincoln became a captain in the Black Hawk War and was elected to the Illinois State Legislature in 1834. Along the way, he taught himself mathematics, read classical literature, and worked on his writing style. He once said, "I will study and prepare myself, and one day when the time comes, I will be ready." He wrote to a friend, "Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other thing." Lincoln worked as a general store shopkeeper for a while, a venture that went bankrupt and left Lincoln owing $1,100, a tremendous sum in those days. He promised to pay it all, and it took him 15 years, but he kept his word. Lincoln began his law practice in 1836. When his clients overpaid him, he sent refunds. People in the area began to call him Honest Abe. As a state legislator, Lincoln took his first stand against slavery. His stand was not popular, as only 5 lawmakers sided with him, and 77 sided with the slave owners in a key vote about slavery. He became the first president ever elected without an electoral vote from a slave state. By the time Lincoln took office, the Confederacy had declared its existence, and the Civil War began his first year in office. A major turning point of the Civil War came with victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg. Lincoln was asked by his generals on the eve of the Gettysburg battle why he was so calm. He answered, "I spent last night in prayer before the Lord. He has given to me the assurance that our cause will triumph and that the nation will be preserved." On March 4, Lincoln delivered his second inaugural speech, and it reads, "Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet, if God wills that it continue, until all the wealth piled by the bondman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow, and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace, among ourselves, and with all nations." John Wilkes Booth was a well-known actor and a Confederate spy from Maryland. Though he never joined the Confederate Army, he had contacts with the Confederate Secret Service. After attending an April 11, 1865 speech in which Lincoln promoted voting rights for blacks, Booth hatched a plot to assassinate the president. When Booth learned of the Lincoln's intent to attend a play with General Grant, he planned to assassinate Lincoln and Grant at Ford's Theater. Lincoln and his wife attended the play, Our American Cousin, on the evening of April 14, just 5 days after the Union victory at the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse. At the last minute, Grant decided to go to New Jersey to visit his children instead of attending the play. At 10:14 p.m., Booth entered the back of Lincoln's theater box, crept up from behind, and fired at the back of Lincoln's head, mortally wounding him. Lincoln's guest Major Henry Rathbone momentarily grappled with Booth, but Booth stabbed him and escaped. After being attended by Dr. Charles Leal and 2 other doctors, Lincoln was taken across the street to Peterson House. After remaining in a coma for 8 hours, Lincoln died at 7:22 a.m. on April 15. Stanton saluted and said, "Now he belongs to the ages." Lincoln's flag-enfolded body was then escorted in the rain to the White House by bareheaded Union officers while the city's church bells rang. Lincoln allowed God use him. He affected the world the best way he could. You can be a world changer. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, also comment if necessary.